It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. You know, that quote, often linked to Darwin, really gets to the heart of what we're exploring today. Because right now, one of the world's most advanced economies is facing a challenge that demands, well, profound societal adaptation. Welcome to the deep dive. We cut through the noise, get straight to the core of complex topics, and give you the takeaways you really need. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a critical, evolving challenge faced by Japan, its unfolding demographic crisis.
And it's important to say, this isn't just about Japan, though obviously we'll focus there. It's really a global case study. It offers vital lessons for many other nations, grappling with similar demographic shifts.
That's a great point.
And for those of you maybe preparing for civil services exams, this is, well, prime current affairs material. It touches on policy, economics, international relations.
Absolutely. Essential context.
And even if you're just curious about the big global trends shaping our world, this is definitely relevant.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is clear. We've gathered sources, focusing quite a bit on an in-depth piece from the Observer Research Foundation, ORF, to really unpack the impacts of Japan's aging and declining population.
It's multifaceted for sure.
Definitely. We'll look at the specific challenges, how they ripple through society, the economy, even national security, and crucially, what solutions are being explored. We want to give you a thorough, critical understanding.
Beyond the headlines.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this then. When we talk about Japan's demographic reality, what does the current picture actually look like? What are the core numbers?
Well, the data is pretty stark. Japan's population is down to about 120.3 million as of 2024.
Wow.
And this isn't new. It's been declining continuously since its peak back in 2008. And the main driver, a relentlessly decreasing birth rate.
A decreasing birth rate. That sounds incredibly significant. Just how low are we talking, and why has it persisted for so long?
It's genuinely one of the lowest in the world. The fertility rate dropped below replacement level way back during the 1973 oil crisis, and it just hasn't recovered since.
Below replacement. So
Yeah.
not enough births to sustain the population.
Exactly. Replacement level is typically around 2.1 children per woman.
Yeah.
Now, the oil crisis might have been an initial trigger, but, the trend deepened over decades. It's complex, more women in the workforce, delaying marriage, delaying having kids.
The rising cost of living.
That too, big factor, cost of education, cost of housing, plus just a general societal shift maybe away from larger families. And compounding this, the proportion of people aged 65 and above has hit an all-time high. So you have this really challenging imbalance.
A huge shift. And are these changes happening sort of evenly across the country, or are there like regional hotspots?
That's a great question because no, it's not uniform at all. There are definite geographic disparities. Interestingly, only Tokyo and nearby Saitama Prefecture actually saw population growth.
Just two.
Just two. The other 45 prefectures saw declines. And Akita Prefecture, up in the north, saw the most noticeable drop. So you have these bustling urban centers, yeah, but huge parts of the country are, well, literally hollowing out, community shrinking year after year.
That's incredibly sobering. It makes that statement from former PM Kashida back in January 2023. It hits harder, doesn't it, when he said, Japan is standing on the verge of whether we can continue to function as a society, citing these exact twin concerns.
It really does. That wasn't just political rhetoric. It underscores the gravity, how deeply this is understood at the highest levels. It's a fundamental challenge to the very structure of Japanese society.
Okay, so if that's the demographic picture, what are the concrete consequences for Japan's economy, for public finances? How does a shrinking, aging population ripple through the financial system?
The impacts are substantial, multi-layered, really.
Yeah.
First, just think about the tax base. Fewer people working means fewer people paying income tax.
Right. Less revenue coming in.
Exactly. But at the same time, age-related spending, healthcare, pensions, it skyrockets. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, they forecasted this back in 2020. They saw this strain coming on public finances.
So fewer taxpayers, more costs. A difficult equation.
A very difficult equation. And it goes beyond just balancing the books. Think about Japan's global standing, a manufacturing powerhouse, innovation leader. This demographic trend risks eroding that competitive edge. It impacts everything.
So the financial system is clearly stressed. But what about the everyday reality for businesses, for employees? Are they feeling this crunch directly?
Oh, absolutely. You've got a declining workforce, simple as that, and fewer customers too. Here's a stat that really jumped out at me. Nearly half of Japanese businesses relied on employees over 70 in 2022.
Over 70. Wow.
Now, compare that to the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report in 2023 globally. Only about 35% of companies prefer employees over 55. Japan is way past that already. It just shows they're running out of younger workers.
That immediately makes you think about productivity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And overall economic growth. If your workforce is shrinking and aging.
Exactly. It worsens the labor shortages they already have. That pulls down economic productivity. And, circling back, it reduces tax receipts even further. The IMF actually predicts that demography alone will slow Japan's economic growth by about 0.8 percentage points per year, every year, for the next 40 years.
That's not a blip. That's a serious long-term drag.
A major long-term drag, reshaping their whole economic future.
And the Social Security system.
Mm.
It must be under immense pressure with these numbers, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like a ticking clock.
Under severe strain is putting it mildly. More elderly people needing support, a smaller workforce paying in, less income tax revenue, more public spending on health care, pensions, senior care. It's that classic inverted pyramid problem.
Right. Small base supporting a large top.
Exactly. And it's just not sustainable long term without some pretty significant reforms.
Okay, this next point is one I find particularly interesting because the connection isn't always obvious. How does this demographic shift affect Japan's national security and its standing in the world?
Yeah, this is a critical link, and the ORF piece really highlights it well. It might seem indirect, but think about it. A falling birth rate means fewer young people. Fewer young people means fewer eligible for military service.
Ah, okay. The recruitment pool shrinks.
Precisely. And that potentially undermines the size, the readiness of Japan's self-defense forces, the SDF. A smaller pool of recruits directly constrains their foreign policy options, their ambitions, your ability to project power, or even just defend effectively. It's tied to people.
So fewer boots on the ground,
Yeah.
potentially less capacity.
Exactly. It forces a strategic recalculation. It's not just about numbers, it's about capability and what you can realistically do on the world stage.
And when you say constrains foreign policy ambitions, what does that look like in practice? How does it affect your regional influence?
Well, look at their neighbors. You've got China, India, relatively young, growing populations. Against that backdrop, Japan faces, frankly, weakening clout.
Yeah.
Regional politics, global politics. It potentially shifts the balance of power.
Less diplomatic leverage.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
An aging nation might be less able or perhaps less willing to deploy forces, participate in peacekeeping, maintain the same level of deterrence. It limits your options.
And what about closer to home? Domestic security. Japan is so prone to natural disasters. Does an older population face challenges there?
That's a very real practical concern. An older demographic might struggle to mobilize quickly or effectively in a major crisis, a natural disaster. And remember the rural depopulation we talked about?
Right, the hollowing out.
That impacts infrastructure, emergency preparedness in huge areas. Fewer working age people means fewer first responders, fewer people to help rebuild. Recovery could be slower, areas more vulnerable.
So all these factors, military constraints, regional shifts, domestic vulnerability, they must be forcing Tokyo to really rethink its strategy. It comes back to that adaptability idea again, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's adaptability in action, or at least the need for it.
Yeah.
These concerns are pushing Tokyo towards, one, stronger alliances, stronger regional relationships, but also, two, a fundamental shift in military thinking.
And so,
Towards a more high-technology, lower personnel military, investing in tech to offset the shrinking number of people. Lawmakers see this. They know the tax base is shrinking, the working-age population is shrinking, a large traditional army is becoming harder to sustain. It's a strategic pivot, really, born out of demographic necessity.
okay, this logically leads to the big question.
Yeah.
What solutions is Japan actually exploring? They can't just acknowledge the problem. What are they doing?
No, they're definitely trying things. It's a multi-pronged approach, which shows they're being proactive. A major focus, naturally, is trying to boost birth rates. PM Kashida's administration, back in June 2023, put forward this direction on strategy for children's future.
Right. The goal being to halt the decline.
Exactly. And a lot of it centers on financial aid. They recognize the cost of raising kids is a massive barrier.
So what kind of aid? And what are the hurdles there?
Things like raising the child allowance, more financial help for childbirth itself, support for higher education. trying to ease that financial burden. They're also looking at improving nursery quality, working conditions, making it less stressful to raise kids.
But it's not just about money, is it?
No, and that's the challenge. You've got deep cultural factors too, like really long working hours that make it hard for parents, especially fathers, to be involved. And still, often, the societal expectation that childcare falls mainly on women. Financial incentives struggle against those systemic
Is
issues.
childcare availability itself?
Still a huge problem, especially in cities.
Yeah.
Severe lack of services, long waiting lists, even though they have opened more daycare centers. It's a complex knot to untangle.
Okay, so boosting birth rates is one track. What about making the most of the workforce they do have?
That's another critical pillar, yeah. Utilizing the current population better. They're working on raising the retirement age, letting companies set it between 60 and 70.
Keeping experienced people working longer.
Right. And actively encouraging companies to include the elderly, value their experience, and, crucially, a big push on female workforce participation. That helps the labor pool and tackles gender inequality issues.
Two birds with one stone, potentially.
Hopefully.
And you mentioned rural depopulation earlier. Are they trying to reverse that or make those areas more viable?
They are trying. Population dispersal is another strategy, making rural areas more attractive, better infrastructure, digital connectivity for remote work, incentives.
Like financial help to move there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The government is offering financial support for people relocating to underpopulated towns, trying to redistribute things a bit, revitalize those areas.
Okay, and finally, immigration. Japan's known for being quite strict. Is that changing?
It's evolving cautiously. The policy still mostly allows only temporary foreign employment, not large-scale permanent immigration. They have programs like the Technical Intern Training Program, TITP, from the 90s,
Wow.
and more recently, Specified Skilled Worker Visas, the SSW visas from 2019. These let people work for up to 5 years in specific sectors where there are shortages, like caregiving, construction.
So opening the door a crack, but not wide open.
Pretty much. But here's where it gets really interesting and something that ORF analysis really picks up on. The demographic contrast with countries like India.
Ah, okay. How so?
Well, India has a median age under 30, adds over 10 million working age people every year. Now, India has its own challenges absorbing that workforce, structural issues, skills gaps. But Japan has this clear growing demand for labor.
It sounds like, well, a potential match made out of demographic necessity, a global adaptation.
Precisely. That's the opportunity. India and Japan could explore new kinds of human resource agreements, maybe institutionalizing remote work options, making labor movement smoother, setting up training programs in India for Japanese needs.
A strategic partnership based on demographics.
Exactly. For Japan, it could ease labor shortages in key areas, caregiving, construction, IT, hospitality,
Yeah.
boost domestic consumption, bring in skilled workers, even temporarily, to boost productivity. It shows how international cooperation could actually help solve these national-level demographic challenges.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean? Japan's aging crisis, the low fertility. It's clearly much more than just numbers on a page. It feels like a profound test of societal adaptation, echoing that quote we started with.
It really is.
And the outcome, well, it won't just shape Japan's future. It's going to be a crucial model or maybe a warning for other nations facing similar shifts. The real-time case study in resilience, isn't it?
Absolutely. And as we've seen, while the challenges are immense, Japan is exploring solutions, innovating, even finding potential opportunities in these global demographic differences. Which leads to a bigger question, perhaps.
Yeah.
In a world where populations are shifting everywhere, how might international cooperation, strategic alliances, how might they be redefined by this need to balance populations and address labor demands? It's something to think about, beyond just Japan.
That's a fascinating thought to leave our listeners with. We really hope this deep dive has given you a clearer, more nuanced view of this critical global issue. It's definitely vital context for general knowledge, and especially if you're preparing for exams like the UPSC, where understanding these interconnected global trends is so important.
Absolutely key.
If you found this useful, please do consider liking this deep dive, subscribing to our channel, and maybe leave us a comment. Let us know if you have questions or other topics you'd like us to tackle. We genuinely appreciate the feedback. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today. It's been incredibly illuminating.
My pleasure. Great discussion.
And thank you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another exploration of the world's most complex and compelling topics.